So today is the day of Summer Games Fest 2026, and it does seem like Nintendo might be lining up to be at their first Summer Games Fest in a big way, according to a couple different reports here that we have from some content creators. We're going to talk about that in addition to some big Nintendo Switch 2 news, some highly anticipated games, and other stuff that is happening with the system. But before we continue, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 at 140,000 subscribers or on September 1st, whichever comes first. Subscribe, like, comment. The winner will be chosen at random, and it's a worldwide giveaway. Thanks, peeps. So we're going to first start off here with Nintendo Prime. He is reporting that Nintendo should be showing up to Summer Games Fest, and here's what he had to say. Adding hype to my live reaction and Summer Game Fest show tomorrow, which is today, I have now been told by 3 separate sources that for the first time in the event's history, Nintendo is partaking and will show something, guessing an upcoming game for Switch 2 or more. Somebody put up a comment saying, doubt, Nintendo wouldn't be involved. It's probably going to be Switch 2 third-party games. Then Nintendo Prime put up the relaxing at the beach meme thing here. Now, I quote tweeted him and I said, Nintendo Prime is reporting that Nintendo will be showing up with something at Friday's Summer Game Fest. Chris Drang is also reporting Nintendo will be at Summer Game Fest. Nintendo usually doesn't show anything at Summer Game Fest, so it will be interesting to see what happens if true. So Prime actually commented on this and said, I wish I could say more. I don't know what they are showing, but I know something that would make every Nintendo fan even more hyped for the show. But alas, gotta respect your sources' wishes. Everything, as always, to surprise and delight. So, interesting. He seems pretty confident based off the beach pick there and the response. We'll see what Nintendo ends up having or not. Summer Games Fest, if you're watching this before 2 o'clock PT, 5 o'clock Eastern time, it's going down today. I will be live reacting and streaming the event, but it'll be interesting for those who have already watched it and you're watching this video, like, what did you think about Nintendo's announcement or lack thereof if there wasn't anything? Rumor also has it that Nintendo has a direct set for next week. We don't know exactly the time. Maybe we shouldn't say that, but apparently maybe early next week there will be a Nintendo Direct. So it'll be interesting to see what Nintendo shows at Summer Game Fest, if they do, hypothetically speaking, if that's correct, and what they're going to have at a Nintendo Direct. Now, the thing about it is that Nintendo did forego the usual spring Direct that they did throughout the Nintendo Switch 1 era, so it does seem like Nintendo might have a nice catalog of games ready to go, on top of stuff that we already know about, like Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, the Duskbloods. That is a popular candidate to maybe being shown off at Summer Game Fest. And they also still have Rhythm Heaven. They still have Splatoon Raiders that's coming up. Star Fox is coming out this month. So there's quite a number of games that we know about. And then there's stuff like the big one, which is Ocarina of Time Remake, which is rumored at this point, but highly anticipated to maybe get a reveal at a Nintendo Direct. So we'll see what kind of plays out there. I'm looking forward to just getting my hands on Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. I think that Nintendo maybe will show that off more, probably will show that off more at the next Nintendo Direct. I don't know if that's something that maybe they want to show at Summer Games Fest first and foremost and give more information at a Nintendo Direct or something. I have no idea, but I did see a ton of people saying it's going to be Orbitals. Nintendo does not own Orbitals. That is not a Nintendo first-party game. That is a third-party game, third-party published. They're just making it exclusive on the Nintendo Switch 2 for right now, and I'm pretty sure it'll come over to other platforms later. But Nintendo does not own that, and that game's already been shown multiple times. It was shown at the Game Awards last year, then Nintendo showed it again at a Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase. So that's not Nintendo's game. People kept on saying Orbitals. That's not Nintendo's game. But either way, what do you guys think? You guys can let me know. But speaking of the Nintendo Switch 2 and how it's doing, let's discuss the Switch 2 in Japan. The Famitsu sales came out. Then we also have some updates from the UK and some records being broken across both fronts there. So shout outs to Pierre485 over on Twitter. And he states that Nintendo Switch 2 has reached 5.86 million units sold after 1 year on the Japanese market, 52 weeks. It is the fastest selling gaming system in Japanese history, more than 800,000 units ahead of the Nintendo 3DS, the previous record holders. So that's actually pretty significant, all things considered. The 3DS was interesting because the 3DS got a Mario title within the first year. I think it was that holiday it got a Mario title, then it got Mario Kart 7. So the fact that the Nintendo Switch 2 is actually above that, pretty impressive, all things considered. And then if you look at Nintendo Everything, they reported on that the Nintendo Switch 2 has sold over 1 million units in the UK, 30 weeks faster than the Nintendo Switch 1. So UK is not a Nintendo type of territory, usually PlayStation. We did get the sales data, or more like just some sales information, that in the UK, the Switch 2 for May was easily the best selling system, as sales kind of fell off of a cliff for PlayStation after the price hike that they got a bit ago. So things are definitely picking up here. And the reason why I say that this is impressive beforehand is because the Switch 2 still does not have that next Smash Brothers game. It still needs that next 3D Mario, the next major new Zelda game, the next major new Splatoon game that's not a spin-off, like Splatoon 4, for example. It's still looking for the next Animal Crossing game. There is a big assortment of great Nintendo franchises that have yet to hit when it comes to the main system sellers that actually drove the install base for the Nintendo Switch 1. That hasn't happened yet on Switch 2, and even if you're looking at something like the two themed Pokemon games like Pokemon Winds and Waves, that has yet to hit the platform. We got Pokemon Legends ZA, but that's more of a Switch 1 game put over. Now we have an exclusively built Switch 2 Pokemon game with Pokemon Winds and Waves coming. That's going to be huge for the system. So the biggest system sellers and heavy hitters are yet to hit the system, yet it's still breaking all these different types of records. I think Nintendo's in the driver's seat here when it comes to what they're going to be able to do. And if you look at how expensive everything is getting, even Nintendo having to increase the price of the Switch 2, but only by $50 at this point. You have the choose your game bundle. A lot of these handheld PCs are coming in at upwards of $1,000 to even $2,000 now at this point. And Microsoft and Sony have also raised the price of their systems quite a bit in comparison. So I do think that Nintendo can actually put together a nice year for 2026 when it comes to games and sales. And I'm looking forward to seeing what's happening, because I think that the better the system does when it comes to sales, that's going to be better for us. The reason why we're getting stuff like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and the reason why we're getting Indiana Jones, and the reason why we're getting Persona 3 Reload, and all these different third-party games that are coming out or that have came out on the system is because they had confidence in the system selling. If the system stops selling and stops doing well, then they're not going to take the time to port the games or make games. So that's the reason why we're getting stuff like Orbitals and why we're getting all these different third-party games that the Switch 1 didn't even come close to getting. So I think that's a good thing. The sales are a good thing when it comes to getting content on the platform. But speaking of big third-party games coming over to the Nintendo Switch 2, let's talk about Elden Ring, because we got a release date finally for this one. So Elden Ring Tarnished Edition will launch for the Nintendo Switch 2 on August 28th. Publisher Bandai Namco and developer From Software announced. Now on the same date, the downloadable content Tarnished Pack will launch for the existing versions of Elden Ring. Here's a little bit of an overview of the game via Bandai Namco. So Elden Ring Tarnished Edition is an all-in-one version that includes the base game Elden Ring, as well as the major downloadable content Shadow of the Erdtree. The title will also feature new armor, weapons, and customization features for Torrent's appearance. The additional content in the title will also be available on other platforms. Elden Ring and its expansion Shadow of the Erdtree are currently available for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC via Steam. Now, this is really interesting because on Twitter, this kind of started up a storm of people saying, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? Why is the price $80? The game is old. But if you look at the price on Microsoft and Sony systems, in addition to PC, it's actually all the same price if you want the Elden Ring Tarnished Edition. Once again, base game with the content, with that big Shadow of the Erdtree expansion. It's $80 across everything. Now, you can kind of do some, I would say, maneuvering here. So if you purchased Elden Ring, let's just say physically, for way cheaper, because digital, it's still full price on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. But if you purchased it physical, you can probably get a deal on that. And I think that's the big separating factor here, or even just purchasing the game separate, the base game. that's different than what they're doing here with the Nintendo Switch 2. You have to essentially get the DLC. They just have the Tarnished Edition right now available. Now, will they maybe split it up later? Maybe. Not really sure. But either way, it's still a full price game when it comes down to it. There have been some sales and deals here and there, but this game, for the most part, goes for full price digitally most of the time. But I do think eventually the game keycard for the Switch 2 with Elden Ring Tarnished Edition will also get discounts like we've seen with physical on Xbox and PlayStation. But if you're wanting to buy the game digitally, it is a full price title. But I will say this, despite it being pricey, of course, you do get hundreds of hours of content between the base game and the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC expansion. You get a lot. Now, I'm not the biggest Elden Ring fan. I tried it on PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4, and I think it's an okay game, but I don't know if it's for me. I might try this one out just to see how it plays and runs and everything like that and to cover it for work here, but I'm not 100% sure if I will or not, so we'll see. But it's coming out August 28th, another big third-party game on the Nintendo Switch 2. But speaking of big third-party games, let's talk about Madden 27 on the Nintendo Switch 2 this year, because there is a huge update with this game. The biggest problem with Madden 26 on the Switch 2 was that it ran at 30 FPS and it had dips. Now, they did have some patches to help out with performance every now and then, like it was better, but it wasn't up to the level that we would like. But they fixed things, at least apparently they fixed things here for Madden 27. So Madden 27 on the Nintendo Switch 2 will have a performance mode that targets 60 frames per second, and if you have a PlayStation 5 Pro, it's getting an exclusive performance mode that supports up to 100 plus frames per a second. Shout outs to my man CEO, the GOAT, for letting us know about this. Here's what they say on the official Madden pre-order page and all of that, or Madden website. New graphic setting options for PlayStation 5 Pro and Nintendo Switch 2 players only. We have a treat for you. This year, we're providing new performance modes for you with updated frame rates. Choose the Visual Pro graphics option, ensures the highest possible visual quality for your gameplay experience. Choosing the Performance Pro graphics option ensures the highest possible frame rates. For PS5 Pro players, you can expect up to 100 plus frames per second while in game. For Nintendo Switch 2 players, you'll be able to reach 60 frames per second. You can choose which experience you prefer from the pause menu and selecting the graphics option. So interesting there. Switch 2 and PlayStation 5 Pro exclusive options for performance. And I think that it makes sense, despite some people might be thinking, wait a minute, why only those systems? Well, once again, the problem with Switch 2 was that there was only 30 FPS with the last year's version. So making it to where you have a performance option to get it up to 60, which would be up to the level of all of the base systems. So Xbox Series S and X and the PlayStation 5 base. That all makes sense. Those systems are just going to run at 60. You're not going to want to run it at anything else when it comes to a sports game. So 60 FPS is good for that. But PS5 Pro offering the extra 100 plus frames is nice. If you're playing on that quality of a system where it is a pricey system, I think giving people that option because it has the extra horsepower and juice to get there is a good idea. So not bad when it comes to Madden. Now, Madden has varying levels of quality for me. I did play Madden on the Switch 2. I did see what Madden was about even on Xbox and PlayStation, and it's still not up to the level that I would like. I still feel that some of the old school Madden games are a bit better when it comes to features and content and all of that. But at the same time, I mean, Madden is still a staple in the industry, and it's good to see that they're actually making those improvements to the Nintendo Switch 2 version, because that was the main complaint with people. It was a nice first attempt, but it just wasn't quite there. And I felt that they would do this because I remember back in the PS3 era, that was an issue with Madden on the PlayStation 3, that it ran at 30 FPS with dips. Like the same thing happened. New system coming into the fray. Xbox 360 was the standard system. We got that at 60 FPS. Madden, I think 2008, so it was the 2007 version. That was the launch year, I think, for Madden on PS3. And that version of Madden was really bad on PlayStation 3. It had frame rate issues. It had 30 FPS. But on the Xbox 360, it was 60 FPS and much better. I remember playing it against my friend when we were in college, and I was like, oh man, this PS3 version's trash. Let's play the Xbox 360 version. It runs at 60 FPS so much better. So it looks like they finally kind of corrected this here with Madden 27 on the Nintendo Switch 2 and these new performance options that you have here for the game. So definitely good news. Now we just need for NBA 2K to follow suit. But unfortunately, there is no college football 27 for the Nintendo Switch 2. So not quite getting that. So maybe next year, maybe college football 28 finally comes to the Switch 2. But yeah, at least Madden will be a much better experience this year with the performance option. We're going to have to see how big of a hit it takes on the graphics, though. I'm not sure how well those are going to look or not, but like I said, we'll have to wait and see when they show off the Switch 2 version some more. So what do you guys think about all the different topics that we discuss here? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, peeps, that wraps it up for this one here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.